Most people think their English problem is vocabulary. It's not. Most people think they need more grammar. They don't. The real problem is much more painful. Every single day, they spend hours reading English, watching English, listening to English. But when the moment comes to speak, their mind goes blank, their heart starts beating faster, their mouth becomes dry, and suddenly the English they knew just a few seconds ago disappears. Have you ever experienced that? You understand almost everything, you know hundreds of words. You can even write English. But when a real person looks at you and says, "Tell me about yourself," your brain acts like it has never seen English before. And here is the scary part. The longer this continues, the more you start believing something dangerous. Maybe I'm not good at English. Maybe English isn't for me. Maybe other people are naturally talented. But what if I told you the problem was never your intelligence? The problem was never your memory. The problem was never your grammar. The problem is that you're treating English like a subject, when English should become a part of your life. And today, I want to tell you a story that completely changed the way I looked at language, a story about confidence, identity, fear, and one simple decision that transformed everything. Always talk in English. Sounds simple, almost too simple, but by the end of this video, you may realize that this small habit is the missing piece you've been searching for all these years, because confidence doesn't come before speaking. Confidence comes from speaking. And that changes everything. Imagine a young man, let's call him Rahul. Rahul lived exactly like millions of English learners. Every morning, he watched motivational videos. Every evening, he studied grammar. He saved hundreds of English words in his notebook. His YouTube history was full of English lessons. His phone gallery contained screenshots of vocabulary. His bookshelf was filled with English learning books from the outside. It looked like he was working hard, very hard, but there was one problem. Rahul almost never spoke English. Not really, he studied it, he analyzed it, he worried about it, but he didn't live it. And that's where most people get trapped, because studying English feels productive. Speaking English feels uncomfortable. One gives you comfort, the other gives you growth. And the human brain loves comfort, far more than growth. Think about it. When you read a grammar rule, nothing bad happens. When you memorize 10 new words, nobody judges you. When you watch another English video, you feel safe. But when you open your mouth, everything changes. Now there is risk. Now there is uncertainty. Now someone might laugh. Now someone might notice your mistakes. And suddenly fear takes control. Not because English is difficult, because judgment is painful. This is something most people never understand. They think they fear English, but they don't. They fear embarrassment. They fear looking stupid. They fear being judged. And that fear silently controls their future. A few years ago, Rahul got his first office job. He was excited, nervous, hopeful, like anyone starting a new chapter. Everything seemed fine during the first few days. Then came the meeting. The moment that changed everything. His manager asked a simple question. "Rahul, what do you think about this project?" The room became silent. Everyone looked at him. 10 people, waiting, listening, expecting. Rahul knew the answer. He really did. He had excellent ideas. He understood the project perfectly. But the answer was trapped inside his head. His thoughts were moving fast. His confidence was collapsing faster. And then he spoke. Broken sentences, long pauses, wrong words. Visible nervousness. His voice shook. The room felt heavier with every second. Nobody laughed. Nobody insulted him. Nobody attacked him. But Rahul felt humiliated. Because in his mind, he had failed. That night, he couldn't sleep. He replayed the meeting again and again. Every sentence, every mistake, every awkward pause. And if you've ever experienced something similar, you know exactly how that feels. You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about conversations that ended hours ago, wishing you could go back, wishing you could say it better, wishing you were someone else. But something interesting happened. The next morning, Rahul made a decision, a strange decision, a decision that sounded ridiculous. He decided that from that day forward, he would speak English every single day. Not perfect English, not impressive English, just English. Always. Whenever possible. No matter how uncomfortable it felt. At first, it was terrible. Absolutely terrible. He talked to himself in English while brushing his teeth. He described random objects around him. He narrated his daily routine. He made hundreds of mistakes. Thousands, probably. Sometimes he forgot simple words. Sometimes his sentences sounded awkward. Sometimes he felt foolish, but something unexpected began happening. The fear started shrinking. Not immediately, not dramatically, but slowly, like ice melting under sunlight. Because fear survives in avoidance. Fear grows in silence. Fear grows when you keep postponing action. But when you repeatedly face something, your brain starts changing. Psychologists call this exposure. The more your brain experiences a situation without catastrophe, the less dangerous that situation appears. And that's exactly what happened. Every day Rahul spoke. Every day his brain collected evidence. Evidence that mistakes were survivable. Evidence that embarrassment wasn't fatal. Evidence that nobody cared as much as he imagined. And this lesson is bigger than English, much bigger. Because the greatest prison in life is often imaginary. Think about all the things people avoid. Starting a business, speaking in public, approaching new people, sharing ideas, asking questions, learning skills. Why? Because they imagine humiliation, failure, rejection, judgment. But imagination often creates monsters much bigger than reality. The human brain is fascinating. Give it uncertainty, and it creates horror stories. Give it action, and it discovers truth. Rahul was finally discovering truth. Months passed. Then one afternoon something unusual happened. He was talking with a colleague. Nothing special, just a normal conversation. Then suddenly he realized something. He wasn't translating for the first time in years. Words were flowing naturally, not perfectly, but naturally. And that moment felt magical. Because language is not supposed to be translated. Language is supposed to be lived. Most learners spend years building a bridge between their native language and English, word by word, sentence by sentence, translation by translation. But fluent speakers don't cross a bridge. They live on both sides, and the only way to reach that point is through usage, not observation. Not preparation, usage. This is where many learners make a huge mistake. They wait until they become confident before speaking, but confidence is not a prerequisite. Confidence is a reward. You earn it afterward. Imagine learning to swim. Would you wait until you felt comfortable underwater? Of course not. Comfort comes after entering the water. The same is true for English. The same is true for life. Yet millions of people spend years waiting for perfect grammar, waiting for better vocabulary, waiting for confidence, waiting for the perfect moment. And while they wait, life keeps moving, opportunities keep passing, conversations keep happening, dreams keep getting delayed because fear has a favorite word. Later, later I'll start speaking. Later, I'll become confident. Later, I'll practice more. Later, I'll improve. But later is often a beautiful disguise for never, and that's a dangerous trap. One day becomes 1 week. 1 week becomes 1 month. 1 month becomes 1 year. Then suddenly 5 years disappear, and nothing changes. Not because you lacked potential, because you lacked action. The truth is uncomfortable, but powerful. Your future English is hiding inside your daily habits, not inside your motivation. Not inside your intentions, inside your habits. What you do every day eventually becomes who you are. And that brings us to something most people never talk about, the identity shift. Because the biggest transformation Rahul experienced was not better English. It was becoming someone who speaks English. There is a massive difference. One focuses on skill. The other focuses on identity. And identity changes everything. A person who wants to speak English behaves differently from a person who sees themselves as an English speaker. One hopes, the other acts. One waits, the other practices. One dreams, the other becomes. And once you understand this, your entire learning journey changes. Because now the question is no longer, how can I learn English? The question becomes, how can I become the type of person who naturally uses English every day? That single shift changes the game, because people protect their identity. If you see yourself as someone who exercises, you exercise. If you see yourself as a reader, you read. If you see yourself as an English speaker, you speak. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's messy, even when it's imperfect. And something incredible happens when you stop chasing perfection. You start making progress. Because perfection is one of the most dangerous addictions in the world. It looks innocent. It sounds intelligent. It even feels responsible. But underneath it hides fear. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, I'll speak when my grammar becomes better. I'll speak after learning more vocabulary. I'll start practicing next month. I need a little more preparation. Sounds reasonable. But if we're honest, how many years have people been repeating those same sentences? 1 year? 3 years? 5 years? Sometimes even longer. The scary thing about perfectionism is that it doesn't feel like fear. It feels like preparation, and that's why it is so dangerous. Fear says, don't do it. Perfectionism says, not yet. Different words, same result. No action, no growth, no transformation, and life quietly moves forward. Imagine two people. The first person studies English for 3 years, but rarely speaks. The second person speaks English every day for 3 years while making thousands of mistakes. Who do you think becomes fluent? The answer is obvious. Because language is not knowledge. Language is behavior. You don't become a better speaker by collecting information. You become a better speaker by speaking. Simple, but not easy, because speaking exposes you. And exposure makes people uncomfortable. There is a reason most people stay silent in meetings. There is a reason many students never ask questions. There is a reason talented people often remain unnoticed. Silence feels safe. But safety has a hidden cost. Every time you choose silence over expression, you teach your brain something. You teach it that your voice is dangerous. And the more you repeat that lesson, the stronger that belief becomes, until eventually you start doubting yourself, not because you lack ability, because you lack evidence. Confidence is evidence. That's all it is. Evidence collected through action. Every conversation completed. Every mistake survived. Every awkward moment overcome. Every sentence spoken despite fear. Those experiences become proof. And proof becomes confidence. This is why some people appear naturally confident. Not because they were born that way, because they accumulated more evidence. They have spoken more, failed more, embarrassed themselves more, recovered more. Their confidence was built, not gifted. This is one of the biggest lies people believe. That confident people don't feel nervous. Wrong. Very wrong. Most confident people still feel fear. The difference is that fear no longer controls them. Imagine a professional singer standing on stage. Do you think they never feel nervous? Of course they do. Imagine a successful entrepreneur giving a speech. Do you think their heart never races? It does. The difference is simple. They learned to move with fear, not wait for fear to disappear. And that lesson alone can change your life, because many people are waiting for a feeling. When they should be building a habit, feelings are unreliable. Habits are powerful. Some days you'll feel motivated. Many days you won't. Some days you'll feel confident. Many days you'll feel uncertain. If your progress depends on motivation, your progress will be inconsistent. But if your progress depends on habits, everything changes. This is exactly what happened to Rahul. He stopped asking himself, "Do I feel confident enough to speak English today?" Instead, he asked, "Am I the kind of person who speaks English every day?" Small difference, massive impact. Because one question depends on emotion, the other depends on identity. And identity is stronger than emotion. Months later, something happened that surprised everyone, including Rahul. The company hired a new employee. Young, nervous, quiet. And during a team discussion, that employee struggled to explain an idea. Everyone looked impatient. The room felt uncomfortable. And suddenly, Rahul saw himself, the version he used to be, the version terrified of speaking, the version trapped inside his own mind. Without thinking, Rahul stepped in. He helped explain the idea. He encouraged the new employee. He made the situation easier, and after the meeting, that employee thanked him. The words were simple, but unforgettable. He said, "You make speaking English look easy." Rahul smiled, because if only he knew, easy? No, not easy, earned. Every confident sentence had a history. Every smooth conversation had a story. Every comfortable moment was built on hundreds of uncomfortable ones. People often see the result. They rarely see the journey. They see confidence. They don't see years of fear. They see fluency. They don't see thousands of mistakes. They see success. They don't see countless attempts. And that's why comparison is so dangerous. Because you compare your beginning to someone else's middle. You compare your fear to someone else's experience. You compare today's struggle to years of someone else's effort. It's unfair, and it's unnecessary. Your journey is your own. The goal isn't to become someone else. The goal is to become more of yourself, because deep inside, you already have ideas worth sharing. You already have stories worth telling. You already have thoughts worth expressing. English is simply the vehicle, not the destination, and many people forget that. They become obsessed with sounding smart instead of communicating clearly. But communication has never been about perfection. Communication is about connection. Think about the conversations you remember most. Was it because the speaker used perfect grammar? Probably not. You remember how they made you feel. Their honesty, their confidence, their energy, their authenticity. People connect with humans, not grammar books. This is liberating when you truly understand it, because suddenly you stop trying to impress everyone and start focusing on expressing yourself. That shift removes enormous pressure. And pressure is often the enemy of performance. The more desperately you try to sound perfect, the more mistakes you make, the more relaxed you become, the more naturally words flow. It's almost paradoxical. Like trying to sleep, the harder you force it, the harder it becomes. The same thing happens with speaking. And this brings us to another hidden truth. Most English learners are not fighting vocabulary problems. They are fighting psychological problems, overthinking, self-judgment, fear of mistakes, fear of embarrassment, fear of rejection, fear of looking foolish. The battlefield is not the mouth. The battlefield is the mind, and winning that battle changes everything. Imagine two learners with the exact same English level. One constantly criticizes themselves. The other accepts mistakes as part of learning. Who improves faster? The second person, every single time, because self-criticism consumes energy, energy that should be used for growth. This doesn't mean ignoring mistakes, it means understanding them, learning from them. Then moving forward, mistakes are feedback, not identity. Read that again. Mistakes are feedback, not identity. One incorrect sentence doesn't make you bad at English. One awkward conversation doesn't define your future. One embarrassing moment doesn't determine your potential. But many people act as if it does. And that's why they stay stuck, because they turn temporary struggles into permanent labels. I am bad at speaking. I am shy. I am not confident. I am not talented. Be careful with those sentences because your brain is always listening. The words you repeat become beliefs, and beliefs become behavior. Behavior becomes reality. This is why identity matters so much. Instead of saying, I am bad at English, what if you said, I am becoming better every day? Instead of, I can't speak fluently, what if you said, I am learning to speak fluently? Small difference, different future. Because one statement closes the door, the other keeps it open. And growth always requires an open door. Years ago, researchers studied something fascinating. They discovered that people often perform according to what they believe about themselves, not according to their actual ability. Think about that. Two people can have similar skills, but the one with stronger beliefs often achieves more, because belief influences action. Action influences results. Results reinforce belief, and the cycle continues. This is why speaking English every day is so powerful, not only because it improves your language, because it changes your identity. Every time you speak English, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. Every sentence matters. Every attempt matters. Every conversation matters. Even the bad ones, especially the bad ones, because growth is hidden inside discomfort. Always. The gym teaches this lesson. Business teaches this lesson. Relationships teach this lesson. Life teaches this lesson. Growth lives where comfort ends. And unfortunately, most people spend their entire lives negotiating with discomfort, trying to avoid it, escape it, delay it. But the people who transform their lives do something different. They walk toward discomfort, not because they enjoy suffering, because they understand the reward. And that's exactly what English speaking requires, a willingness to look imperfect today, so you can become powerful tomorrow, a willingness to struggle now, so you can communicate freely later, a willingness to feel uncomfortable, so you can eventually feel unstoppable. And if you're still watching, I want you to imagine something. Imagine yourself 1 year from now, not next week, not tomorrow. 1 year, 12 months, 365 days. Imagine waking up and speaking English naturally. Imagine joining conversations without panic. Imagine introducing yourself confidently. Imagine attending interviews calmly. Imagine expressing your thoughts clearly. Imagine no longer feeling trapped inside your own mind. How different would your life look? How many opportunities would open? How much confidence would grow? How many fears would disappear? The answer is probably bigger than you think, because language changes more than communication. Language changes identity, and identity changes destiny. Destiny, such a big word. Most people hear it and imagine something mysterious, something written in the stars, something they have no control over. But destiny is often much simpler than that. Your destiny is usually hidden inside your daily decisions, the conversations you avoid, the risks you take, the habits you repeat, the excuses you believe, the actions you choose, day after day, week after week, year after year. And one day, those tiny decisions become a life. A real life. Your life. This is why the habit of speaking English every day is far more important than most people realize. Because it is not merely a language habit, it is a courage habit, a confidence habit, a self-respect habit, a growth habit. Every time you choose to speak instead of staying silent, you become slightly stronger, not dramatically, not instantly, but undeniably. Like water shaping stone, slow, invisible, powerful. Most transformations happen this way. Quietly. People expect lightning. Life usually gives sunrise, gradual, consistent, certain. And that creates a problem, because human beings love dramatic results. We love before and after photos. We love overnight success stories. We love viral transformations. But real growth rarely looks exciting. Real growth looks repetitive. The same practice, the same effort, the same discipline, repeated over and over again, until one day the results become impossible to ignore. Think about a bamboo tree. For years it appears to grow very little, almost nothing. Then suddenly it shoots upward, explosively. People see the growth. They don't see the years underground. And English learning works the same way. For months, you may feel stuck. For months, you may feel slow. For months, you may think nothing is changing. Then suddenly something happens. You understand a movie without subtitles. You speak without translating. You join a conversation naturally. You answer questions effortlessly. And people call it talent? But you know the truth. It wasn't talent, it was repetition. It was consistency. It was all those invisible days nobody saw. The days when you practiced, even when you felt foolish. The days when you made mistakes. The days when you doubted yourself. The days when progress seemed invisible. Those days matter most. Because character is built in invisible moments, not public ones. Anyone can feel motivated when results are obvious. But can you keep going when results are hidden? That is the real test. And honestly, that is where most people quit. Not because they are incapable, because they become impatient. They plant a seed. Then dig it up every week to see if it's growing. Growth doesn't work like that. You must trust the process. You must keep watering the seed. and eventually the results appear. Not because of luck, because of consistency. There's another story I want to tell you. A story that reveals something important about human nature. A famous violin teacher was once asked a question. How can you tell which students will become exceptional? People expected a complicated answer. Maybe natural talent, maybe intelligence, maybe perfect technique. But the teacher gave a surprising response. He said, "The best students are usually not the most talented." Pause for a moment. Think about that. Not the most talented, then who? The students who practiced, even when they didn't feel like practicing. The students who showed up repeatedly. The students who accepted being beginners. The students who didn't let embarrassment stop them. In other words, the students who stayed. That lesson applies everywhere. Fitness, business, relationships, art, communication, English. Success often belongs to the people who simply refuse to quit, and that's powerful. Because it means your future is not controlled by talent alone, it's controlled by persistence. And persistence is available to everyone, including you, especially you. Maybe nobody has told you this before. Maybe you've spent years believing you're behind. Maybe you've compared yourself to people who seem naturally fluent. Maybe you've wondered whether you'll ever become confident. Maybe you've secretly felt hopeless. If that's true, listen carefully. You are much closer than you think. Because confidence is not built in giant moments. It's built in tiny moments, one sentence, one conversation, one attempt, one day at a time. And eventually, those tiny moments become a new version of you, a version that once seemed impossible. This is where many learners experience something unexpected. The English problem starts disappearing, and a life problem gets solved instead, because confidence gained in one area spreads. The person who learns to speak English despite fear often becomes braver elsewhere too. They start sharing opinions, they start asking questions, they start taking opportunities. They start believing in themselves. Not because English is magical, because courage is transferable. When you prove to yourself that you can overcome one fear, other fears become smaller. And that changes your entire life trajectory. Imagine standing at a crossroads. On one side is comfort, familiar, predictable, safe. On the other side is growth, uncertain, messy, uncomfortable. Most people choose comfort, not once, every day. And that's why their life never changes. Because the future cannot be different if your choices remain the same. Let that sink in. The future cannot be different if your choices remain the same. If you keep avoiding conversations, you'll keep fearing conversations. If you keep staying silent, you'll keep doubting your voice. If you keep waiting for confidence, you'll keep waiting. The cycle continues until you interrupt it. And interruption requires action. Not tomorrow, not next month. Today, there is something deeply tragic about unrealized potential. A talented singer who never sings. A brilliant thinker who never shares ideas. A capable person who never takes action. The world never gets to see who they could have become. And perhaps the greatest tragedy isn't failure. Perhaps it's potential that never gets expressed. Potential trapped inside fear. Potential trapped inside hesitation. Potential trapped inside endless preparation. Don't let that become your story. Because life moves faster than you think. One day, you're 20, then suddenly 30, then 40. Years pass, whether you act or not. The clock keeps moving. The calendar keeps turning. And eventually, everyone faces the same question. What did I do with the time I was given? not what you intended, not what you planned, what you actually did. And that question can be uncomfortable or empowering, depending on your actions. Years from now, imagine looking back. Imagine remembering this exact moment, this exact video, this exact decision. Wouldn't it be amazing if you could say, that was the day everything changed? Not because you learned another grammar rule, not because you memorized another vocabulary list, because you finally decided to speak. Really speak without waiting, without hiding, without perfection. Just speak, because action creates clarity. Action creates confidence. Action creates transformation. There is a beautiful truth many people discover too late. You do not become confident and then take action. You take action and become confident. The order matters. The sequence matters. Waiting for confidence before action is like waiting for warmth before lighting a fire. The warmth comes after, always after. So if you're waiting, stop waiting. If you are hesitating, stop hesitating. If fear has been controlling your decisions, stop negotiating with it. Fear does not deserve that much authority over your future. Speak anyway. Nervous, speak anyway. Imperfect, speak anyway. Shaking, speak anyway. Unsure, speak anyway. Because every time you do, you weaken fear's grip and strengthen your own voice. One day, you'll realize something extraordinary. The thing you feared most was never the real problem. The real problem was letting fear make your decisions. That realization is freedom, true freedom. The freedom to express yourself, the freedom to communicate, the freedom to participate in opportunities, the freedom to be heard. And everyone deserves that freedom, including you, especially you. So, starting today, talk to yourself in English. Think in English. Describe your day in English. Make mistakes in English. Ask questions in English. Live in English, not perfectly, consistently. Because consistency beats perfection every single time. Remember Rahul? Years after that painful meeting, he stood in front of an audience, not 10 people, hundreds, confident, calm, clear. He spoke English naturally, not because he became fearless, because he became familiar. Familiar with mistakes, familiar with discomfort, familiar with growth. And familiarity transformed fear into confidence. That same transformation is available to you. Not someday, starting now. Because your future English is not waiting for another course, another book, another video. Your future English is waiting for your voice. The voice you've been hiding, the voice you've been doubting, the voice you've been underestimating. Use it, trust it, develop it, strengthen it, and one day people will look at you and think, wow, speaking English looks easy for them. They'll see the confidence, they'll see the fluency, they'll see the results, but you'll know the truth. You'll know it was built one conversation at a time, one uncomfortable moment at a time, one brave decision at a time. And it all started with a simple choice. A choice that can change your life too. Always talk in English, not because it's perfect, not because it's easy, but because every sentence is a step toward the person you're becoming. And that person is far more powerful than you realize. So, when this video ends, don't just feel inspired, do something. Open your mouth, speak one sentence, then another, and let today become the day your transformation begins. Because the life you want is not hiding in perfect English. It's hiding on the other side of your fear. Go find it.